This morning, we're going to start with remarks from our board chair. Joanne has been the FSRA board chair since 2021. She comes to FSRA with an accomplished career as President and CEO of Investment Funds Institute of Canada, President and CEO of Central Credit Union of Canada, and Vice President of the Canadian Bankers Association. Joanne, please.
Thanks, Judy. God, there's so many of you here. Welcome. It is great to see such a large audience, and I want to welcome as well those of you who are online. So again, thank you for coming, but I want to start by thanking, in particular, those of you who are here who sit on our sector advisory committees, and also our advisory panel, our consumer advisory panel. And Laura, I don't know where you are, but I want to thank Laura Tamblin-Watts, chair of that committee. All of the input we get from the advisory committees, and in particular the Consumer Advisory Committee, really strengthens the work we do, and it really helps us to understand both sectoral issues and what consumers need. So thank you for that. So welcome again. In the few minutes I'm going to speak with you today, I want to come back to the theme that I highlighted last year. FSRA was given, 5 years ago now, FSRA was given the mandate to transition into a principles-based regulator, or PBR for short. We love our acronyms, so keep that, PBR, principles-based regulation. That approach drives outcomes, giving consumers choice, fairness, and safety in the products and services available to them. And it allows financial services companies a greater capacity to innovate. As board chair, I've been hearing from people in many of our sectors about how we are implementing the principles-based regulation. Most of the comments, I'm happy to say, have been extremely positive. But I also hear concerns. Those who are expressing concerns believe there's ambiguity in the approach, and they are somewhat uncomfortable with the fact that we are moving away from the known standard checklist and prescriptive requirements. Concern centers around the fact that there isn't clarity about how to achieve the outcomes FSRA expects. There's also concern that transitioning to principles-based regulation is leading FSRA to collect more of your information and data. Over the next few minutes, I will speak to those concerns and hopefully leave you with a greater understanding of what we are doing and the benefits that we all are going to reap from that approach. So while we have highlighted FSRA's move to a principles-based model, a better description is that we are moving to a hybrid model. A hybrid model is one that seeks to rely mainly on principles, such as protecting the rights and interests of consumers and promoting high standards of business conduct. The model will set clear outcomes that we expect our regulated sectors will eventually meet. But while FSRA will seek to rely mainly on the principles to support the regulatory outcomes we've identified, there will always be a need for rules under specific circumstances. We use the term rules in two senses. There are FSRA rules which are generally structured in a more principles-based and outcomes-focused manner, and there are existing statutory requirements and regulations that contain prescriptive standards, such as the requirement to hold a license. Some of our rules are more principles-based and some are more prescriptive, therefore, depending on the context and the policy objective. For example, FSRA has worked closely with regulators across the country to agree on how the cost of investing should be calculated for segregated funds and mutual funds. We will implement this approach in a detailed FSRA rule to enable customers to compare the costs of their various investments based on consistent reports. That's an example of a prescriptive rule. Principles-based regulation is founded on a supervisory relationship which is cooperative, collaborative, and requires mutual trust. As your regulator, FSRA won't act unilaterally for those who are committed to achieving the identified outcomes. We will work to build consensus and understanding. We trust but verify using information and data that you provide to assess the achievement of your outcomes. The exercise benefits both FSRA and the regulated entity. The insight that we get by your data sharing allows FSRA to focus on fulfilling its statutory mandate. So good regulation, of course, as I've said, comes from that data because it provides an understanding of the business and service it is regulating. So good regulation comes from a regulator understanding your business because it allows us to be more proactive and then reactive, allowing us to identify potential issues and course correct before something becomes a full-blown crisis and impacts the stability of the sector or undermines the confidence of the consumer. This is really what PBR is meant to achieve from the regulator's perspective, the ability to focus on the problems that matter. Let me give you a couple of examples about that will illustrate what I'm talking about. We recently completed 2 thematic reviews of the credit union sector, one on residential mortgage lending and the other on deposit taking. A total of 58 credit unions, pretty much the entire system, provided detailed data. For many, it required a substantial effort and considerable resources to fulfill, but it was worth it. With higher interest rates, inflationary pressures, and a resulting housing crisis, we found that credit unions have not, let me repeat, not materially increased lending activity in high-risk mortgages. The bottom line, we are not seeing system-wide issues that should be addressed with more prescriptive guidance or rules. The ability to access that data in a timely manner allowed FSRA to reduce the regulatory burden by not imposing additional requirements, which would be a solution looking for a problem. The credit union data demonstrated that while other information was showing that financial institutions were making riskier loans, credit unions were acting prudently. The second thematic review was on credit union deposit taking. That data helped us understand current trends in deposit taking activities and enabled FSRA to identify opportunities to enhance deposit taking practices, particularly as they relate to periodic self-assessments, internal audit efficiency, and board oversight. These thematic reviews and the data that supported them have allowed us to get an accurate picture of the sector, enabling us to develop a regulatory response that is both measured and appropriate. An ongoing analysis of that data will tell us whether our solutions are working or whether we need to change course. By the way, the data of these thematic reviews is being shared with the credit union sector. So it gives the sector the senior management and the board of directors of each credit union information that allows them to better manage their operations. I'll give you one further example of FSRA's collection analytics in action. Our market conduct unit completed a first-of-its-kind review of life and health insurance managing general agencies, or MGAs. In this case, the acronym is a whole lot easier than managing general agencies. Using the data collected, our unit discovered that some MGAs and their agents were using poor training materials and selling complex products that were not appropriate for their consumers. In fact, some customers were being harmed. The investigation resulted in enforcement action against 2 MGAs and follow-up with other MGAs, agents, and insurers. So with these examples, I hope I've clarified the key benefits and the promise of a hybrid principles and rules-based regulation model. I think that, I think we all think, certainly at FSRA and the board, that providing the information and data support to support our analytics is a more effective way of supervision than having a team of supervisors descending on you, asking questions, gathering documents that may or may not tell the story, the full story. It can lead to less burden for you over time, and our discussions will be more focused and our efforts directed to where they matter most. So, in most cases, the information and data we're asking for should already exist. If it doesn't, our request will create a constructive internal dialogue about the value of good information and data. We believe it's foundational and fundamental to understanding your business, particularly as we move into an AI-driven world. The responsible sharing of information and data will be the cornerstone for societal advancement and well-informed decisions. So, in closing, let me summarize the key points I'd like you to take away. First, consumer and beneficiary protection are at the heart of everything we do at FSRA. Second, we're thinking differently and are fully committed to implementing a hybrid, principle-based and prescriptive-based approach that will give us the right outcomes. Third, we encourage you to share information and data to allow us to better understand your business, which will result in better regulatory decisions and outcomes. And fourth, as I noted about our sectoral advisory committees, consultation is foundational to FSRA, and we support robust dialogue and collaboration across all of our sectors. So thanks for being here today and continuing that dialogue and conversation.